right, my babies. Uh, Getting in the groove, getting in the rhythm, flowing. All right, so I'm thinking about whatever. Should I stop or not? So it's been 4 months since I did this, and I was trying to hype myself earlier to kind of be like to be. I'm setting up. I'm moving forward. I'm getting ready. And I'm talking about redoing videos every day. So my goal was 1,000 videos, and we're currently at video 546. Maybe I have to explore this feeling, certain kind of overwhelming sensation. I have at least 20 videos on this book remaining, book number 3, and I have book number 4. It's fully complete. It's fully complete, all the way till the last page, from the first page to the last page. So maybe it's a bit daunting or something like this, but I'm remembering that take it one video at a time. So I'm gonna read like I always do, which I haven't done for 4 months. And before right now, I decided to watch my last video to see where I am. And I think there's a bit of it's similar to when you write something and then you go back to it after a while. The first thing that happens is you reflect on yourself back then and who wrote it. And sometimes there's stuff that just are kind of like personal to you, and sometimes they're kind of like philosophical or profound. And sometimes it's just like a small story, maybe it's a poem. I do that. Just like whatever comes to mind, I write it, and however it comes out, I kind of let it loose. So, so I was watching the video, and I got one of those awkward shit. This is what I do. I don't know because if it's been so long, or just the fact that I was doing it consistently, it was part of my day. My days have changed a bit right now and how they look like. And a big part of like that feel where I'm opening and talking to the video and like reflecting on something interpersonally. Remember, like with the camera, I see myself. But I make notes, I write, I make notes. I do this because I carry my phone and I take voice notes. And I even send WhatsApp messages to myself when I have things that I want to think about. And I write notes over there. Like all of that is kind of like part, but it's not as vibey as it felt from the last video. And the last video is 544, not 545. 545 is me talking again and kind of like loosening up because it feels like a whole lot of like the outside world when you don't have a spot to self-actualize. You self-reflect, you do stuff, but self-actualization is basically a reflection of of yourself in the external world. And it's funny because you do that every day. And for me, like I always go, I work, I meet people, I talk to people, I have attitudes, right? And just depending. And all of those are being processed in my head and processed with words and with written documents and with basically like voice notes. But looking at myself is a different form of like uh, is a different view of the translation. Like I actually am looking at the person that is that's going out into the world and doing stuff. And it felt like the past 4 months I was a hermit, but a hermit when it came to myself, actually kind of get out of myself in order to discuss something with myself, like actually talk about it. And so watching that video kind of gave me a certain vibe. And it's the first 4 fucking minutes, man, just talking about this. But so like I'm kind of excited. I'm gonna read the previous video that I had that I talked about that I then previous notes. Oh no, fuck it. Actually, I'm not gonna read the previous notes. So any video that's a note starts with the note, and any video that's not a note, it starts with an off-script adventures because something random happened and I decide to kind of like talk about that. But today's video is the meditative state, approaching programming as the process of thinking about the overall vision. The activity of cleaning house slash mundane errands slash repetitive tasks. So it's beautiful because what I did here is I gave myself context in order to understand what the hell I was trying to kind of write. But whatever came from me reading this, I'm going to talk about it right now, and that probably we piggyback on that tomorrow and after tomorrow and after tomorrow and with every video basically. So the meditative state, I haven't read like this. The meditative state, approaching programming as the process of thinking, thinking about the overall vision and the activity of cleaning house, and basically the activity of cleaning house, the mundane errands and the repetitive tasks are things that you're no longer present when you're doing. And so for some reason I want to check. No, I haven't. And they are so simple in your head that once you create a pattern, you kind of zone out because it's literally like, let's use the dishes for an example. It's point A, dirty dishes, point B, all the dirty dishes are cleaned and are in one place. So kind of like, what do you do in between? And I think my discussion right now is basically this is a meditative state. Because ultimately, as you're doing something in a repetitive process, you're actually like have your thoughts are being processed on their own. And I'm sure a lot of us kind of like a lot of us can relate to you kind of doing something like sweeping and like watching your thoughts roam about. And it's very much a flow state, in my opinion, even though it's not necessarily flow when you're actively doing many things, but maybe it's the simplest form of a flow state. But that is a meditative state. I think if we think about it, if the simplest form of flow is basically is washing dishes, because well, after the second dish you kind of create the pattern and all you're doing is and everything like this. If the simplest form of flow is washing dishes, and then there's normal state of flow when you're creating stuff, like yeah, when you become adept at something, when you've mastered something, then you kind of like have a more like again it's the concept of making a sword, for example, or the concept of like practicing the sword or fighting. It becomes more a lot of factors and variables are involved, whilst when you're washing dishes it's only basically whatever's dirty and a small pattern to interact. And mastery basically would make sense because there are many, like cooking, for example, is a high state of flow because there are a lot of variables, a lot of ingredients, and a lot of different types of variables because you have the stuff that you put inside that are variables, and you have the quantities, and then you have the heats, and then you have whatever, right? Like the ingredients themselves, depending if they're fresh or meaty. That also eventually becomes a flow state. But then on both these flow states, you're actually interacting with things outside of you. So it makes sense that the highest form of flow is uh, is meditation, even though we don't normally enter our the as what's his name? Uh, Super wicked guy, man. He's a filmmaker. David Lynch. David Lynch talks about it from a sea of consciousness. And ultimately, what we do, like when we achieve that flow, and again, I'm describing it as a flow because one is you're focusing on a small pattern and you're focusing on small items, which is the lowest state of meditation, which is the washing dishes, right? And then the higher form is basically just cooking and entering a flow in cooking, whether you're noticing it or not. Because a lot of times you kind of like know what you want to cook, so you enter the kitchen and suddenly everything is done and you're out. You don't need to watch TV. You don't have the urge to do something else. You're kind of like zoned in. So the highest form is no attention to the outside world at all. Absolutely none. Because everything becomes one, right? And it dissipates. And I think that's basically how the third dimension, which is consciousness. The fourth dimension, which is consciousness. I mean, it can't be the third dimension. Well, it's funny because like there are the seven states of consciousness that I read about one time. But I don't know if I should go through them right now. The idea behind it is I was kind of hyping myself up to approach programming as the process of thinking about the overall vision. I remember when they started bombing us, and I was like, okay, it's surprising because ultimately, in a state like that, what happens is you you go back to the things you're fully able to rely on, right? And maybe I should be proud of myself because I was still consistent with everything, but I was completely not panicking, and I was completely not feeling anxious or any of that stuff. Like there are times where I felt anxious, but I actually finished the website in 4 months. I was able to program the website and code it in 2 months and a half. Actually, I was able to program the website and deploy it. And over the past month, I've been reviewing my work, strengthening my thought process and approach. And my goal right now is not to be a web developer building a website. It's software engineering. Like uh, like okay, so there's a difference between a developer and an engineer because the developer uses the tools that the engineer creates, basically. That's the simplest form. So I want to go deeper into the software world because right now I feel like that's my next stage, specifically when it comes to what I'm working on. And again, it's funny because I'm looking forward to having a team around me, but like we actually have customers right now. So I'm very proud of myself. And this it's funny because like writing a note like this, it felt like the time it was supposed to be read is where I was focused on programming and focused on all that stuff. And in a way, it's manifesting itself. So now I understand. That's how I approach programming. I literally just like sit in front of the computer and I go like, I'm spending time. What am I gonna spend time with? I'm spending time with this. I'm spending time with this. And it just becomes like, okay, this and this is the outcome that's possible. And then everything in between is just kind of like, yay, I have a couple of hours to do something. I think people might reflect on that as deep work, but or maybe deep work. Yeah, it's literally, I think people might reflect. So here's to that, man. I'm super proud of myself. I'm back to talking about this stuff. Fucking love you guys. And as always, it's a video. We're back, baby.